Hello and welcome to Freya's Tropical Garden. It's been a wet couple of weeks down here in the south coast of the UK, and I think probably most of us have had this rain, but the garden has been absolutely loving it. Now here's what we've got coming up for you on today's episode. I visited the Lost Gardens of Heligan in Cornwall and bring you some of the plants that I saw there. And I'm going to take you through 10 evergreen plants that you can grow in a tropical garden to keep winter interest. But first, here's how my garden's changed over the last 2 weeks. We've had heavy rain practically every day for the last couple of weeks, which has really affected the grass, so it's a bit slippery and muddy in the garden at the moment. And of course, as autumn sets in, we've got some of these beautiful autumnal colours. And I particularly love the orangey red of the Virginia creeper. Although this is considered an invasive species, it's still available for sale in the UK, and gardeners are advised just to take care if growing it. And now the leaves are starting to droop on my deciduous trees like my ginkgo biloba. And although they're still mostly green at the moment, we're starting to get those autumnal colours coming through. And my chilli plants have nearly finished. They're just producing their last fruits. And if you intend on overwintering your chilli plants indoors, then now is definitely the time to start bringing them indoors, because once they start showing damage to the leaves like these ones, it would be much more difficult to save them. I normally treat mine like annuals. In the tropical garden, however, things are still looking mostly green and lush, and most of the plants here are absolutely loving all the rain. Although it won't be long before things start to die back, for now, this is when the garden's really starting to look at its best if you want a jungle. The paths have become unpassable again, and everywhere you turn, the foliage is just spilling out. And I've had to cut back masses of foliage just to be able to walk down the path. My Alocasia macrorrhiza leaves are bigger than they've ever been. And if you're worried about what time is right for bringing plants indoors, perhaps you've already started bringing your plants indoors, you can see just how well they're still doing even at this time of year. So I will be continuing to enjoy the garden for at least another couple of weeks, as long as the weather still stays warm enough. But of course it's a good idea just to keep an eye on the temperatures. You can see the colour on my Strobilanthes diariana is now fading slightly. This is because the older leaves fade to a slightly silvery colour, and the vibrant purple comes from the newer leaves. This plant will stay outdoors all winter, but I'll be taking plenty of cuttings for the new plants in spring. My Dahlia Twining Smarty is still flowering, and it's producing quite a few new buds as well. And the Dahlia Recoletta is also still producing beautiful red flowers. I've grown this in a pot this year, but it will go in the ground next year. And I still have the odd canna flowering as well. This Canna Cleopatra is producing more of an orangey colour at the moment, while the Canna Pattern still throws up the odd flower, although nothing like as abundant as it does in spring. And this yellow canna has been lost amongst the jungle foliage this year and is finally starting to flower. Most of my gingers have finished flowering now, but there's still the odd flower from the Hedychium densiflorum. And I still have splashes of purple around the garden from my Salvia amistad. While the Salvia bethelii hasn't really got going flowering this year and is still producing its flower buds. And the Begonia Santa Cruz is still providing a lovely splash of red at the bottom of my border. If you're looking for something that's going to flower throughout summer and autumn, then you can't go wrong with this one. And even my Begonia Rex Silver Lace is starting to produce some flowers now. This will be staying outdoors all winter with leaf cuttings taken for a precaution. The Persicaria Red Dragon is starting to lose that lovely red-coloured foliage, however it is still trying to flower. And another flower has emerged from my yellow Nephophia. There's a new flower emerging on one of my arum lilies at the moment. We normally get quite a few flowers at this time of year. However, this is the first time I've seen a flower on my Colocasia pink china. And the flowers are continuing to develop on my Musa basjus. Again, this is the first time that I've had a Musa basjus flower, so it's surprised me how long it's taken. My Colocasia wagyu has finally started to get this beautiful variegated foliage through. Although I normally leave my Colocasias out for winter, the wagyu and the Pharaoh's mask will be coming indoors. So now this is the part of the video that I take you around a section of my garden, and I'm going to talk about all the plants that are growing here. So if you've seen a plant in one of my previous videos and you wanted to know what it is,
this is a very good opportunity to get that plant ID. And today I'm going to be taking you through the first bed that I created that my very first Musabasjus went into. So this is what it was looking like earlier on in the year. Just a reminder of some of the plants that might have died back since then. So I'll start with the main focal point of this bed, which is the Musabasjus. Musabasju is also known as the hardy banana, and it is the hardiest banana that you can grow in the UK. In the south coast of the UK, you can leave these unprotected and they will get through winter absolutely fine. But even if you do lose your banana, then they are root hardy and will grow again from the ground the following year. Although they've got a little bit lost with all this jungle foliage, I've got 2 clumps of red canna growing in this bed. As you can see, they have beautiful vibrant red flowers, and they also have a lovely dark red foliage. Although the older leaves do fade to a nice dark green with red stripe running through it. You can see here the newer leaf is a much redder colour. The dramatic red and green striped foliage here is from the Canna Cleopatra. This is a really attractive plant because not only has it got such striking foliage, but the flowers are absolutely beautiful with these red stripes through the yellow and the flecked pattern to the petals, making this a very popular variety of canna. The Canna patens is one of the easiest varieties of canna to grow, as it grows so quickly. I've divided this plant again and again and it's all over my garden now. My second Cordyline australis is also growing in this bed. I bought it at the same time as the Cordyline I showed you in episode 9, however this one is nowhere near as tall as the other one, because instead of growing height it actually grew a double head. Melianthus major is also known as the giant honey flower. This is an evergreen suckering shrub, and in most years it will keep its leaves for me through winter. However, it did die back to ground level in last year's harsh winter. This Trachycarpus wagneranus is actually the first palm tree that I bought. It was missold to me as Trachycarpus aureophilus, but I absolutely love it. The stiff, compact leaves are absolutely perfect if you're living in an area that is affected by strong winds. I have a couple of ricinus growing in this bed, although they haven't reached the same heights as some of the other ricinus I'm growing. And these have all grown from cross-pollinated seeds that I've collected from my garden. However, this one looks truer to the form of blue giant, whereas this one looks closer to the Carmen Ceta pink, or possibly the Ricinus Katie, both of which have pink stems. Although in the past Ricinus have grown very well in this bed, as my garden grows I just don't think they're getting enough light now. Strobilanthes diariana is also known as the Persian shield, or the royal purple plant. It's native to Myanmar and is an evergreen shrub growing to 1 metre tall by 1 metre spread. I also have a Cleome growing here. This is an annual, however I've been growing it in this spot every year since starting my garden. However, this is the first year it hasn't flowered, unlike elsewhere in my garden, and I think again it's a sign that it's not getting enough light in this part of the garden now. Helichrysum italicum is also known as the curry plant. This is because the leaves emit a strong curry scent. However, it's not really used in cooking because it doesn't emit the same kind of flavour. It's a Mediterranean plant which is drought resistant and hardy in most of the UK. Xanthodeschia ethiopica is also known as the arum lily. It's native to southern Africa, where it has been classified as a toxic weed. However, in the UK it's often grown as an ornamental plant, and it has absolutely beautiful flowers, normally in spring and autumn. Bruum palmatum is also known as the Chinese rhubarb. This is a wonderful hardy plant to grow if you're looking for some large leaf foliage. It will die back to ground level over winter and re-emerge in spring, growing really fast, up to 2 metres tall when it flowers. It prefers to grow in full sun or partial shade, and prefers moist or boggy soil conditions, or very frequent watering to reach the leaf sizes that we can see here. Brunnera alexander's great is a deciduous, rhizotomous, mound-forming perennial with large heart-shaped leaves and delicate little blue flowers. It prefers to grow in full or part shade and is hardy throughout the whole of the UK, dying back to ground level in winter. I bought this Livingstoner at the Unusual Plant Fair at Gilbert White's house, and although I originally planted it elsewhere, it was getting a little bit too much sun and the leaves were starting to scorch, so I moved it to this bed where it's getting a lot more shade. However, I will be moving it into my frost-free grow tent soon. Tetrapanix papyrifera is a wonderful exotic plant to grow in a tropical garden. It can survive the winters down here on the south coast of the UK without any protection, although last winter the top growth point did die back a little and the leaves grew from lower down the trunk. This will eventually grow tall enough to provide a beautiful canopy of foliage. Hadicium gardnerianum is a beautiful variety of ginger, with stunning orange flowers in autumn. I do let mine die back to ground level in winter, although you can dig it up and bring it indoors if you want to give the growth a head start in spring, because it can be a bit slower growing back than other varieties of ginger. My yellow variety of Nephofia, or red hot poker, has flowered beautifully this year. It's been much more abundant than the orange varieties that I grow, and is still throwing up the odd flower in autumn. This beautiful pink variety of lily, Stargazer, was growing in this spot earlier in the year. However, lilies do best in full sun, so I may need to move it next year.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, I went on a trip to Cornwall and I visited some of the beautiful gardens there. So over the next few weeks, through the dreary winter weather, I'll be able to bring you some beautiful tropical gardens. So keep an eye out for these, and we've got part 1 coming up for you now.
The Lost Gardens of Heligan are located near St Austell in Cornwall. With over 200 acres of land, there is plenty to see here, including woodland walks, rare breed farm animals, one of the longest Burmese rope bridges in Britain, which is suspended 100 feet above the plants below, a productive garden, pleasure grounds, and a wildlife hide, and of course the main purpose of my visit, the jungle. The jungle sits in a steep-sided valley, providing a microclimate at least 5 degrees warmer than the rest of the gardens. So now I'm going to take you through some of the plants that you can see on your visit. Please bear in mind that the plants here are not labelled, so if I've made any identification errors, please let me know in the comments. Phoenix canariensis is also known as the Canary Island date palm or the pineapple palm. It's related to the Phoenix dactylifera, which is the true date palm, but is greener, denser and faster growing than this variety. But even so, it takes around 60 years for its trunk to reach 10 metres in height. It's both drought and salt tolerant and hardy down to about -6 degrees C. However, younger plants will need extra winter protection. Camerops humilis is also known as the European fan palm or Mediterranean dwarf palm. It's one of only 2 species of palm which is actually native to Europe and grows mostly in Spain, Portugal, Italy, southern France and Monaco. The Camerops is a clumping variety with several stems growing from a single base. This gives it a bushy shrub-like appearance. It's drought tolerant and hardy down to about -12 degrees C. Trachycarpus fortunei is also known as the Chinese windmill palm or the Chuzan palm. It's thought to be native to China, Japan, Myanmar and India, although its native range is difficult to establish as it's been cultivated for thousands of years. Due to its widespread use as an ornamental plant, it's now considered invasive in some areas of southern Switzerland. Trachycarpus fortunei grows at much higher altitudes than other palm trees and is one of the hardiest palms. Dicksonia antarctica, or the soft tree fern, is abundant in Cornwall and you'll see it in most of the gardens that you visit. They originally arrived in Cornwall at the end of the 20th century in ships returning from Australia, using their trunks as ballasts to prevent the cargo from moving. These trunks were then discarded on the quayside in Falmouth docks. New fronds emerged and they started to grow. Of course, with a tree fern, you can cut the trunk with a chainsaw anywhere from the ground level up to the top of the trunk near the crown. And because the trunk is basically made up of fibrous roots and old fronds, it's able to regrow new fronds from the top of the trunk. And for this reason, a lot of the tree ferns you'll see around Cornwall are actually over 100 years old. Araucaria araucana is also known as the monkey puzzle. It's native to Chile and Argentina and is actually the national tree of Chile. It's the hardiest species in the conifer genus Araucaria and is hardy throughout the UK. Fatsia japonica is also known as the false castor oil plant. It's native to Japan and southern Korea. The word fatsi comes from a Japanese word similar to the word for eight, due to the 8 lobes on the leaves. Fatsia japonica is an evergreen shrub growing about 1 to 5 meters tall with stout, sparsely branched stems. The leaves are spirally arranged, reaching up to 50 centimeters long. It's an ideal plant for a shady area of a tropical garden. Spider's web is a variegated variety of Fatsia japonica. It shares the same palmate leaf shape, but its deep green leaves look as though they've been frosted or webbed, hence the name. Cortaderia salona is better known as the pampas grass, and having grown up with a few of these in my garden when I was a child, I can tell you this will not make it anywhere near my tropical garden, as I've cut myself plenty of times on its razor-sharp leaf margins. Sasa palmata is a low-growing, shade-tolerant bamboo native to Japan. Like all bamboo varieties, it has the potential to be invasive. It's easy to grow as long as it's not in full sun in dry soil. Bambusa vulgaris is also known as the common bamboo and is one of the largest and most easily recognised. It forms moderately loose clumps and has no thorns. It has lemon-yellow culms with green stripes and dark green leaves. Philostachys huanvenzu is a tall, hardy and very impressive bamboo, capable of reaching up to 20 foot tall even as a young plant. Occasionally these beautiful green canes may revert to the original yellow form of Philostachys aureocalis. Tetrapanax papyrifer is also known as the rice paper plant. It's an evergreen shrub and the sole species in the genus Tetrapanax, although there are a few different cultivars and the Rex cultivar is the most often sought due to its reputation for being the larger variety. However, all of these varieties are humongous and can grow up to 7 meters tall with leaves 1.5 meters across. They're relatively hardy and can usually survive temperatures at least down to -5 degrees C. However, with some winter protection, they can normally go down lower than that. And if the growth point does get killed off in a harsh winter, then they can resprout branches from lower down the trunk. Melianthus major is also known as the giant honey flower. It's an evergreen suckering shrub endemic to South Africa. It grows about 2 to 3 meters tall. It's hardy down to about -5 degrees C, but in a cold winter may get cut down to ground level. Pseudopanax crassifolius is also known as lancewood. It's a tree native to New Zealand. Young plants have leathery leaves with prominent central ribs. As it gets older, they become wider and shorter. The main difference between crassifolius and ferox is that the leaves on Pseudopanax ferox are more deeply toothed. It can reach up to 6 meters tall, with a trunk growing up to 25 centimeters in diameter. And in summer and early autumn it produces green flowers. They prefer to grow in a sheltered position in full sun and are hardy throughout most of the UK. Rubus tricolour is also known as the Chinese bramble. It's an evergreen shrub native to southwestern China, and it spreads vigorously, forming a dense mat of dark green leaves. It's hardy throughout most of the UK. Acanthus mollis is also known as bear's breeches. It's native to the Mediterranean region and is a leafy, clump-forming perennial with tuberous roots. In summer, its flowers are borne on erect spikes up to 2 meters tall and make great cut flowers. It's hardy throughout all of the UK. Acanthus senii is a variety native to Ethiopia, and yet surprisingly is hardy throughout the UK, dying back to ground level in winter. It grows up to 1.6 meters tall and prefers to grow in full sun in a sheltered spot with free draining soil. Lysochiton americanus is also known as the western skunk cabbage or American skunk cabbage, due to the skunk-like smell of its flowers. It's normally found in swamps or growing alongside streams, and is actually part of the arum family. However, once established, this plant is very invasive and is actually banned from sale in the UK. Colocasia are often known as elephant ears or taro, which is a root vegetable often used in African and Asian cooking. Their large leaves make them a great foliage plant in a tropical garden, and this variety here looks like it's pink china, which is hardy in a lot of the UK. Ligularia sibirica is also known as the leopard plant and is a perennial in the sunflower family native to Siberia. It has large leaf foliage and in July to October produces tall spikes of daisy-like yellow flower heads. Rhododendron arboreum, or the tree rhododendron, is an evergreen shrub or small tree native to the Far East. It can grow up to 40 feet tall. In spring, it produces masses of bell-shaped flowers and is hardy down to about -10 degrees. Polystichum minutum is also known as the western sword fern. It's an evergreen perennial fern native to Northwest America. It can grow over 1 metre tall and prefers to grow in damp shade conditions and is fully hardy in the UK. Sonchus fruticosus is also known as the giant sow thistle. It's a species of flowering plant endemic to Madeira, and it grows up to 4 metres tall. Its appearance is like a giant dandelion and will definitely bring some interest into a tropical garden. It prefers full sun or part shade, however it's only hardy down to about 0 degrees, so would need additional protection through winter. Gunnera manicata is also known as the giant rhubarb and is native to Brazil. It's a large clump-forming perennial growing up to 8 foot tall with leaves 4 foot wide. It was around 150 million years ago when the dinosaurs roamed the planet, giving it its nickname dinosaur food. And when you look at it here, you could imagine that a herd of dinosaurs has just traipsed through this. It's a very thirsty plant, and to get to the larger sizes will need a lot of water. Gunnera tinctoria is the slightly smaller, more invasive form of Gunnera. Although they're often missold as manicata in the UK, you can tell the difference because the tinctoria has a pink stem, whereas the manicata has a thick green stem. The manicata flower spikes are also less compact.
Coming up next, I'm going to talk you through my top 10 evergreen plants that I grow in my tropical garden to provide interest through winter.
For most tropical gardeners, winter is the hardest time to keep the garden looking good. Some plants get brought indoors, others die back to ground level, leaving massive patches of bare soil, while other plants are protected with fleece and straw and cloches, which doesn't exactly look attractive. So I'm going to go through 10 plants that I grow in my garden that maintain their foliage throughout the winter. Bearing in mind some of these plants may not be hardy in colder gardens. However, I have left off plants like Melianthus major, which will normally stay evergreen. However, in the last winter that was a bit harsher, did die back to ground level. So all the plants that I've chosen did keep their foliage last winter, bar 2 that are new, including the first one on my list, which is Echium. Now, I've included Echium on my list quite tentatively, as I wasn't growing any Echiums in my garden last winter, so I'm not sure how it would have fared. And I certainly do find them to be quite a fussy plant. Quite a few of the ones that I've grown in the past have either not got enough light or had too much water, so finding the right spot in my garden for them has been a bit tricky. However, when they do grow in the right spot, they are an absolutely beautiful plant that will stay evergreen in milder gardens. They are biannuals, so they will die back after their second year after flowering, but they grow easily from seed, so it's a good idea to have a few. Next on my list is the olive tree. Traditionally a Mediterranean plant, the olive tree has beautiful silvery foliage that will stay green through winter. They should be planted in full sun with protection from northerly winds, and this plant is drought tolerant and will do better in free draining soil that's not going to get too wet. They also grow really well in containers, so it may be you just want to move your olive tree to a bare patch of your jungle garden during the winter. Olive trees can also be pruned to maintain their shape, however this is best not done in autumn or winter. And they will grow well in both acidic and alkaline soils. In my garden in Hampshire, I don't need to protect my olive tree over winter, and they can tolerate temperatures down to about -7 degrees for a short time. Next is a plant that I bought recently, especially to bring more evergreen colour into my garden. Mahonia soft caress is fully hardy. It's an upright, compact shrub growing to about 1 metre tall by 1 metre wide, and the leaves on the soft caress variety are spine-free. They grow in most soil types but prefer well-drained soil and do well in full sun or partial shade. It won the Chelsea Flower Show Plant of the Year in 2013, and in summer and autumn it will produce these beautiful honey-scented yellow flowers. Although I've talked about soft caress here, there are other varieties of Mahonia which have holly-like leaves and can also provide winter interest. Next on my list is the Fatsia, and if you watch my other videos then you probably have noticed that the Fatsia is one of the plants that I always see in tropical and subtropical gardens that I visit. And with good reason, of course. It's hardy, it's evergreen, it has large jungly foliage. I grow 4 different varieties of Fatsia in my garden at the moment, including the spider's web, the polycarpa, also known as green fingers, and I've recently got a variegated form. Fatsia is a medium-sized shrub that will grow between 2 and 4 metres tall. It grows well in most soil types and can be grown in full sun, part shade or full shade. However, they do grow best in full shade as this brings out the darker, glossier leaf colour. However, the frosted look of the Fatsia japonicus spider's web is also an absolutely beautiful plant that could give a really wintry feel to a garden. At number 5, I've gone for the Trachycarpus, although you could choose any hardy palm tree to provide additional winter foliage. I've gone for the Trachycarpus because it's hardy, they're normally very easy to grow from seed or to buy in supermarkets, and I grow 3 different varieties of Trachycarpus in my garden, including the Princeps, which has a paler underside to the leaf, and the Fortunii, which is generally considered to be one of the hardiest palm trees you can grow in the UK. It's hardy down to about -10 to -15 degrees, although younger plants may need a little extra protection. However, in Hampshire, even my smallest seedlings have been left out all winter and been absolutely fine. They grow best in full sun or part shade, and they will grow in most types of soil. The Wagnerianus, or Waggy, is a more compact variety with stiffer leaves to help them withstand strong winds, while a hybrid version of the Princeps has also been cultivated to improve its hardiness. Next on my list is the Cordyline, and you pretty much can't go anywhere on the south coast without seeing people growing Cordyline australis. And even the Red Star variety is quite hardy on the south coast. However, the pink varieties are not as hardy as the other two, although I successfully grew one for 8 years without any winter protection until it got killed last winter. Cordylines are easy to grow and are drought tolerant. The green varieties grow best in full sun, although those with colour variations will probably prefer a bit of light shade. They also make good container plants, so less hardy varieties could be brought indoors if there's a particularly harsh frost. And if the leaves do get frosted back in winter, they can regrow from lower down the trunk or even ground level. Next on my list is bamboo, which is a really hardy evergreen plant. I grow a few different varieties of bamboo. However, they should be grown with caution, as they can be very invasive when planted in the ground without proper root control. All mine are planted in pots. However, you can see from some of the gardens that I've visited that bamboo can make such a beautiful screen. And with maturity, these beautiful thick canes are absolutely stunning. Most varieties of bamboo are fully hardy down to at least -20 degrees. and they are among one of the fastest growing plants in the world. Although there are varieties which are much more compact and easy to grow in a smaller garden. Next on my list is the yucca. There are several varieties of yucca which are hardy and will remain evergreen in the garden. The main variety to avoid if you're looking for an outdoor plant is the yucca elephantypes. This is only hardy down to about -4 or 5 degrees and is normally considered a houseplant. However, most other varieties of yucca will be absolutely fine outdoors in the UK. Yucca gloriosa can grow up to 2.5 metres tall and is also available in variegated variety, while Yucca rostrata has narrower blue-green leaves, whereas Yucca carnarasana is believed to be hardy down to about -18 degrees. And in late summer, these tall flower spikes up to 2 metres tall make this a stunning plant. Next on my list is the camellia. I grow 2 varieties of camellia in my garden, one that flowers white and one that flowers red. Their dark green glossy leaves are perfect for bringing a bit more colour to the garden through winter. And in autumn they're already starting to produce their flower buds. So the added advantage with a camellia is they will actually flower, possibly around December to February time. Although the 2 varieties I grow flower around March. They are found in the tropical and subtropical areas of Asia. However, most varieties of camellia are really hardy, although Camellia sasanqua is best grown in the milder areas. And as well as these beautiful flowers, camellia fruits are actually edible. Camellias grow best in shade or part shade and prefer acidic or ericaceous soil. And the last plant I put on my list is the acacia. And I've included this one because it's got a very different texture of leaf to the other plants that I've discussed. They are hardy and evergreen in the milder parts of the UK, and with the harsh winter that we just had, mine did receive a little bit of damage to the leaves, but it still maintained those leaves throughout winter. They grow best in full sun in acidic or neutral soils, and generally do better in sand or clay soils. And it's relatively fast growing. It can grow up to 12 metres tall with a spread of up to 4 metres. I've only had mine about 3 years now and it's already probably tripled in size. And now in autumn it's starting to grow the buds ready to produce the most beautiful yellow flowers in spring. Although I grow Acacia dealbata in my garden, there is also Acacia baileyana, which is another variety which is very similar to the dealbata. Which brings us to the end of my list, and I wanted to just mention this plant. Although it doesn't stay evergreen in winter, the Clematis Winter Beauty does flower through winter with these beautiful white flowers.
Well, that's all we've got time for today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Freya's Tropical Garden, and don't forget to join us again in 2 weeks' time, and here's what we've got coming up for you next time.
Part 2 of the Lost Gardens of Heligan will look at more of the plants that you can see there. And as winter is fast approaching, we'll take a look at some of the ways that you can overwinter your plants. If you're enjoying this content, then please do make sure you're subscribed to my channel. This is still a new channel, so every subscriber really does make a difference. You can also turn on notifications to make sure you don't miss any of my new videos. And please let me know what you think in the comments because they really do help my channel to grow. You can also follow me on social media for links to my latest videos and my photo of the day, in which I usually share photos of flowers from my garden, along with their names if known. You can follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, or you can join my Facebook group to ask questions or share photos. And you can find all of my YouTube videos on the Freya's Tropical Garden website, which I will also be expanding to provide advice pages as well as items for sale. Links to these pages are included in my description.